Hello, this is Erica with Launching Legacies. Welcome to our daily devotional. Today, I actually have a pretty short devotional because I'm just going to throw some things out there and ask you to do some work with me, some research with me. I've been doing research the past few days on wealth. Somehow it came to me as something that I should be talking about and discussing in the devotional series. And most times when things like this come, I study and I have some kind of foundational knowledge about the topic, and that kind of helps me. And as I pray, I get direction. But today, I'll have to say to you that I really come away after my studies still with this curiosity, and I want to share the curiosity with you. And the curiosity is whether or not we actually understand wealth. From the perspective of the Bible in particular, right? Like I can understand human definitions of wealth, but I want to know if we really understand what wealth is supposed to be according to the scriptures. And there's a few scriptures that are interesting to me that really pique my curiosity. And the next week, we're going to spend some time in exploration. I'm going to continue to study and pray and think about the different perspectives about wealth, but I want you to do the same. If you would commit yourself to that, that'd be great. But so let's talk about just what I've learned so far. And maybe some people might think, well, you've learned a lot, you got it. But I don't think so. I think that we have I am on the precipice of changing my position or understanding of wealth based on this new study of the scriptures. And because of that, I take time to do that because I want to make sure I'm not going from wrong to wrong, right? Misinformed to misinformed. I want to go from maybe misinformed or not informed to correctly informed, right? And get a position that is good footing, which is why I'm posing a question and not just stating a position. So what I have learned about wealth is, according to Nave's Bible Dictionary, we're going to look at the Greek word for wealth. Actually can be broken down into two parts, and one is well and the other is passage. Okay. And so when you put it together, it means a good passage or a well passage, right? And so I knew well was in there. I knew that wellness was a part of wealth. Okay. But I didn't know that about the whole concept of a passage, right? And so wealth can be translated into something that gives you a good passage, opens doors, makes a way for someone. And now that might not seem extremely difficult to conceptualize because I think society can sometimes view wealth as a way, opening of a door or a passage maker. But what does wealth actually mean? And again, that's the Greek, right? I looked at the Greek for wealth because I figured the context of wealth from the Greek would have more pertinence than the Hebrew, just because Greek is more closely to the modern day life that we live, although a bit different. Anyhow, I looked at that. And then I have a few scriptures that I want you to contemplate and think about, that I'm thinking about and praying about, and what they actually mean. And so you want to read them in context, but I'm going to give them to you kind of I'm just going to give them to you, and I want you to think about them. They're short. And so one is 1 Corinthians 10:24, and it says, let no man seek his own wealth, but every man another's wealth. Okay. And so here the context seems to imply that we shouldn't be trying to make ourselves wealthy, but that we should be seeking someone else's wealth. But then wealth is also used very more synonymously with prosperity, although our society thinks of wealth in the form of riches. So if we go back to the Old Testament, though, we see that wealth and riches clearly are not the same thing, because in about 15 scriptures, wealth and riches are used in the same sentence. So it says riches and wealth, riches and wealth, riches and wealth, riches / wealth. I mean, not / comma, wealth. And they're not the same. They're not treated as the same thing. And so like even Proverbs 18:11 says a rich man's wealth is a strong city and a high wall in his own conceit. Okay. And so wealth is something that a rich man may have. However, it seems to allude to, especially in Ecclesiastes, that rich men don't always have wealth, even though that may be something that they desire. So it's really interesting because as we look through the Old Testament and the New Testament and the context by which wealth is used, we don't necessarily get this idea that wealth in and of itself is very beneficial and good. And I'll tell you what, from a perspective of having been raised in evangelical Christian church, I would say that I don't recall wealth being mentioned in any way that was ever really informative in a positive direction. And maybe you can reflect on that if you have a background that's similar to mine, or you can just reflect on it in general. I remember wealth being mentioned this way. It's something that people seem to have wanted. Okay, so there was a concept of people wanting to be wealthy, but then also in some places there was a fixation on prosperity, which definitely is closely aligned to wealth by definition. But it was like, oh, you want to be prosperous, you want to be prosperous. So sometimes it was an overfixation on prosperity, and so that is concerning. But then also it was something that people clearly wanted or desired, but there was no real instruction on maintaining wealth. What is wealth when you break it down? What does wealth actually mean? Like, what does it mean to be truly wealthy? And why then, if what our society defines as wealth is truly wealth, why then would in 1 Corinthians the suggestion be that we shouldn't be pursuing our own wealth, but the wealth of another man? Why should we be pursuing his wealth for him? Meaning that passage is saying, pursue for him to be wealthy, not for you to be wealthy. So why would that be the case? And so I think it's a perplexing thing, and I'm still working through all of the scripture. Actually, there is a bit of scripture in this area, not as many references as one might think, but I think it's something that we need to think about. And I want to give you the assignment that I'm giving myself. And I've got to do the work, because tomorrow I'm going to come back and talk from a position that of understanding after these days of reading and researching and kind of praying about what wealth really is. But I want you to consider it too. And here goes why this has probably come up at this season, because around this time is as a counselor, I work with a lot of people who seem to be pursuing things, right? And so we have Black Friday is going to come up, and people in the holiday seasons tend to buy. And it seems like they want their friends and family to assume that they are, I don't know, wealthy. That's what it seems like this is a novice, just straightforward, not looking at the definition of wealth, not looking at the scriptures on it. But it seems like they want this presentation of riches or wealth or some kind of monetary stability, and they are buying a lot of things that they can't necessarily afford for something that I'm not sure that a person can pretend to be. Right? I'm not sure, based on what the scriptures are saying and what the definitions are saying, that a person can pretend to be wealthy. But it's peculiar that around this season, the season that we call the time of giving, is fine, and generosity is fine, that people are putting on airs in this regard. And whether or not we can actually pretend to be wealthy seems to be something that that is missing from the narrative, right? Can we actually be wealthy by buying things? Or does wealth have nothing to do with purchases, and nothing to do with property, and nothing to do with actual riches? Because they're clearly very different things. And so, I don't know, it's something that perplexes me, but something that around this season, as counselors, probably every counselor that deals with a diversity of different issues will deal with this issue of wealth around the time of this season, because people tend to spend money with the intention of buying things. But what's behind it all? And what's this dis-ease with not having things? What's behind that? And how can we understand wealth from a perspective that is healthy for us from a biblical context? I know I've got a lot of questions. Maybe you are watching this devotional thinking, you wishing that I didn't. But every place that we go needs to start with a question in my mind, right? We need to start with a place of recognizing what we don't understand in order to get to a place of understanding. We don't want to be boastful. We want to be humble, looking forward and saying, I really don't know if I get this. And maybe you get it. And if you do, good, God bless you. But we're going to spend the next week exploring what wealth really is. What do the scriptures really say about wealth? And whether or not it's something that we should be looking forward to, or something that maybe we have and we don't know, or something that we don't have and we don't need. And I'm not really 100% sure. But this is what I am sure of. We will be praying for you. We hope that you're praying for us. And we hope that you are engaging this idea of asking questions and exploring scriptures to find the answers, because that's the whole premise behind why we do this devotional series. Until tomorrow, please be blessed. And like I said, we'll be praying for you, but we want you to be praying for us. Okay, see you tomorrow.